Question and answers. Psyched to be back with you guys. I got some good questions to go over. If you have any questions or you've thought of anything or you've seen anything that you're interested in knowing more about, send me a message. I'll be happy to answer them in more depth. So, first one. Doesn't matter if you're in a calorie deficit weekly or daily if you're looking for fat loss. I would definitely say weekly. I might even say monthly. So at the end of the day, let's say 2,000 calories is your tipping point. At 2,000 calories, if you eat 2,000 calories, you'll maintain your body weight. If you're under 2,000, and again, this is an example, so your number is going to be different. If you're under 2,000 calories, you're going to be eliciting fat loss. If you're over, you're going to be slowly gaining weight. So in terms of how this works, you're not like deducted points if you go to 2,100 calories for a day. It's the zoomed out view. So if I were to take 2,000 calories times 7 for those days, as long as that value, or 31 for the month, as long as that total value is under your 2,000 average for the day, you're doing well. So that helps to quell some anxiety in knowing that you may have points where you're above and you're enjoying like the 4th of July, like we had barbecues and we had things going on and I drank more beers than I normally do, or definitely more than I normally do. And like ate a lot of things without really worrying about it. But then you can come back and you can get back into your normal routine and in your habit. And again, like if you're looking for fat loss in a slight deficit, and over time that will average out to be just under that value. So at least weekly, if not monthly. Can you do 2 workouts a day if you like to do 45-minute sessions once in a while? Totally. You definitely can. I would say the biggest thing with this is just watch for burnout. A lot of times it's easy to want to do more, especially in the beginning of your, fitness journey. So I would say definitely pay attention to not wanting to burn yourself out. That being said, I work with a lot of people who have busy lives. They're a mom, they work full time, they have big careers, they have a lot going on. So sometimes you might have a session that has different pieces to it, and you might not have a full hour or 45 minutes even to get your training in. So a lot of days I'll have to break things up. So you might get like 15 minutes here, and then in between meetings you might get 15 minutes there, and towards the end of the day you might get 15 minutes there. Is it ideal? I'd rather you do it all in one go, but at the end of the day, what's going to move you forward? Not doing it all, or doing some 15-minute chunks throughout the day? I bet you know the answer to that. Let's see. I'm trying to lose body fat. I'm on a calorie deficit and strength training plus cardio. I take my weekends off. Is that a big deal? I'm consistent during the week. In terms of training, no, definitely take time. Like training, you need to take recovery. It's super important. It's a big part of the process. You want to train hard, but then you also need to recover well as well. On the nutrition side, this is like probably one of the biggest flaws or issues that people come up to when they're looking and viewing fat loss, is they're super good Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Friday, and then the weekend hits and it's like, well, it's Saturday, it's Sunday, I'm tired from the week of being so strict with myself that all of a sudden they go above their calories. So if you're at like say 1750 in the 2000 example, 1750 for the 4 days leading up, that puts you in a deficit of 1,000 calories over those 4 days. Awesome. But then if you have Saturday, Sunday, and you go to 3,000 calories, which really isn't that hard to do if you're not being totally aware, one day you're back to even, and a second day at that, you're 1,000 calories plus. So it's one of those things where people will be super strict with themselves, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then let themselves recover during not track or what have you during the weekends. And in the long run, again, with the weekly or monthly view, you're setting yourself back despite trying really hard. So the more you can track on the weekends and be aware, and a way to work backwards for that is instead of tracking starting Monday, if you're tracking calories, instead of starting on a Monday, start on Friday. So you know kind of Friday, it's going to be in the back of your mind that it's the first day. So you know if you go over, you're going to be able to make up for that, or have to make up for it if you want to have fat loss once the week rolls around. And the idea is this isn't going to be a forever thing, but it's slowly informing your decisions. So you start to understand, like, as you track during the week, it's good to be conservative, but maybe not be so conservative with yourself. And then on the weekends, you won't need to have this huge emotional recovery from being so conservative. And at the end of the day, you can find that instead of being in this position where it's these huge peaks and troughs, you can kind of level that out where you live at a place where you're fulfilled, yet also accomplishing your goals of fat loss. So, moving on. All right, I'm 6'4", 200 pounds. I walk for 45 minutes morning and evening. I lift at lunch. Is that too much cardio? This comes back to the same question of like, are you experiencing burnout for one? And then two, if you're looking for fat loss, it's again, really easy to do more. But you're never gonna out-train a questionable diet. So one thing that I would say is like, if you enjoy the walks and you're a sedentary person outside of all of this movement, meaning you work at a desk or you just don't have the opportunity to move, then I would say, keep going, like that's awesome. If you're doing it as a way to punish yourself or to burn calories, I would actually slow down from that, because that's gonna create more of an emotional problem that in the long run is gonna be harder to actually accomplish your goals. So generally, walking is low impact. For most people, you can do it quite a bit. And as long as it's not detracting from your ability to perform in training, I'd say keep it up. And again, as humans, we're meant to move. Like largely through the day, we're meant to move. We're not meant to sit for 8-10 hours as a lot of people have to. So I bear that in mind. Moving's good, as long as it's not viewed as a punishment for yourself. Let's see. Helpful waist cinchers for ladies, side planks, cables, etc. Yeah, there's no magic movement that's gonna cinch your waist. The magic movement for cinching your weight is plate pushes, is actually like pushing your plate away from you and eating less. So the only thing that's gonna elicit fat loss is being in a calorie deficit. Everything else is gonna be good movements that are gonna build strength. So like side planks, cable crunches, things like that are good to build trunk stability, which in the long run is going to lead to having a stronger midline, which is going to decrease the risk of injury. And if you get injured, then you have to lower calories even more because your physical output's greater, or lower, sorry. It's one of those things where like it has it's super beneficial to do that, but I would also understand that you're not going to spot reduce anything. So it's our body holds on to body fat where it deems necessary for survival. It hasn't caught up with the fact that we live in the world we do now where we have food always available to us. So biggest thing if you're looking for fat loss, calorie deficit, but I would keep in that core work just because maintaining a strong midline is always going to be helpful in just being a better and more robust human. Do I think creatine is a good supplement? What are some of the advantages? Yeah, it's definitely the most researched supplement, period. And all the research is great. It will help with strength production, so you'll feel a little bit stronger for those small rep ranges or very explosive things. Think like super short duration, like 1 to maybe 7-8 seconds. Anything outside that, it's not gonna be beneficial in terms of performance. The biggest thing and why I'm actually intrigued by it is there's a whole host of research coming out now about the cognitive effects. So they're actually giving it to people with like MS and Parkinson's and dementia and Alzheimer's and things like that. So basically all the research points out everybody should take it every day. Basically there's nobody that shouldn't take it. And that's one thing, it's cheap, it's well researched. A creatine monohydrate is all you need. And that's all I would look for. If you need recommendations, I can send those to you. 20 to 30 minutes of cardio following strength training, is it enough? I want to lose body fat. Yeah, again, we've beaten this down quite a bit. It's calorie deficit, so understanding that we're good. In terms of the cardio stuff, yeah, in terms of like heart health and overall like fending off all-cause mortality, so like all the things that can pop up and kill you, like getting in cardio is super advantageous. Not to mention, you're gonna be able to recover faster as you train. You're gonna be able to have just a bigger output in all of that. So it's a super important thing to do. And in terms of like just creating a bigger deficit, like 20 to 30 minutes of cardio is not gonna burn an insane amount of calories, but it is a piece of the equation. So it's gonna be another 100, 200, 300, depending on how big you are, calories that you're expending. And if you do that with each training session, again, assuming it's not punishment for yourself, that will add up in that weekly, monthly, long-term view. How to protect my joints while weightlifting? Thank you. Contrary to what everybody thinks, or it's changing, but before what everybody thought, was weightlifting is actually a super good thing to help protect your joints. I would say the biggest thing is usually if your joints aren't feeling good, you might be performing the movement correctly or incorrectly, or you might be progressing to a variation that you just aren't ready for. So that's where it's advantageous to have a coach. I know this question came from somebody who, at least I don't coach. So it's advantageous to either get a couple sessions with a trainer in person so they can watch. My favorite kind of quote with this is like, squats hurt my knees, and then they demonstrate and you're like, well, those aren't squats, so they shouldn't be hurting your knees. So it's one of those things where I would definitely like have somebody knowledgeable look at it. If you're curious, you can fire off a video and I'll send you feedback as well. But by and large, using strength training will help to build some capacity and robustness in your joints. What's your opinion about a fat burner supplement, the most natural and safest ones? I'd say 95% of the time they are a waste of time, waste of money. Most of them are just basically like stimulants, like an insane amount of caffeine, which will ultimately like stunt hunger a little bit. And it gives you that kind of like energized feeling. A lot of times if you're in a calorie deficit, it's normal to be sluggish. That's your body's way of making sure you survive. So as calories come down, you're gonna feel a little less zippy throughout the day, especially over time, not in the very beginning, but over time. So when you introduce fat burners, you feel like they're doing something because you have more energy. Well, all it is caffeine and other stimulants. So I'd say go drink a coffee and understand that basically they're really good at sales or marketing and providing sales. And usually it just leaves you feeling jittery and maybe coming down from the caffeine, but that's essentially why they work or say they work. But I'd say for most people, or pretty much everybody, they're a waste of money. 3 or 4 full body workouts per week, which is better? That's up to you. I mean, ultimately, there's a billion equations for figuring this out, and the only thing that really matters is the program that you can stick to and adhere to for the longest amount of time is going to be the one that wins. So I personally, and I love training. Like this, it's like my personal time. It's how I connect with friends. It's what I do for a career. Like I just fucking love it. But I train 3 days a week. I program myself for 3 days a week. And it's one of those things where I know at 3 days, I guarantee I can get 3 days. 4 usually can get, but sometimes I can't. So I set myself for 3, I hold myself to that, and I usually end up moving 4 or 5. Sometimes those 4th and 5th sessions are, you know, family walks or hikes around an island or something like that, or a surf session. Other times they're training sessions that I had an opportunity to get in. But if I set the barrier at 3, I know that I'm not gonna go under that. And it's one of those things where 3 for me and for everybody is really gonna keep moving forward, especially when it's part of an active lifestyle. How to get big legs. In order to build muscle mass, you generally need to be in a slight calorie surplus, which is gonna elicit actual like muscle growth, and you need that extra calories to help elicit that. In terms of building any muscle, you need to slow down your rest periods. You need to increase the intensity in which you're training, and it's gonna be higher volume, meaning probably like 8 to 30 for reps during those phases. So like if you're gonna do, say, a back squat, what I would say is you wanna be like 8 to 30 reps, and I know it's a huge range, but that's what research dictates. And it's one of those things where you need to get, not to failure where like technique's breaking down, but you need to be like very grateful to be done. Like if I wouldn't stop at 8, knowing like, oh, I probably could have gotten 12. If you're gonna stop at 8, you need to think like, I may have been able to squeak out one more, but that's it. And I would definitely work on the higher ranges there. In terms of other things, like you're not gonna grow muscle quickly, otherwise people would have done that. So it's one of those things where like I'd be committed to the game for a long time, and just understand that it's gonna be a process. You need progressive overload, you need to eat in a surplus, and it's gonna take time. And then I would also do big compound movements. So things like deadlifts, things like back squats, front squats, heel elevated squats, RDLs, hip thrusts, things like that. Can I go over my fat and carb macros, but still within my calorie deficit and still lose weight? Can I go over my fat, carb macros? Yes, totally. If I'm following this correctly. At the end of the day, all that matters for fat loss is calorie deficit. And usually for most people, all I will actually do is total calories and a protein target. And if you hit total calories, you're gonna be losing body fat, meaning you're in a deficit. And then protein, because the significance of that is that A, it has a higher thermic effect of feeding, meaning calories are being burned just to digest that. 1. 2, you're also going to be staying more satiated for longer, which again, when you're eating less food, the more full you can stay, the better off. And then I largely leave, assuming calories and protein are in check and accounted for, then I'd say carbs and fat are up to you, which allows you to be in a calorie deficit or be aware of your intakes while still having the freedom to enjoy the foods you like. Like I know, personally, I really enjoy having Greek yogurt and chocolate chips at night with some blueberries. Total hack, I put them in the frying pan, let them get like syrupy. Whew, so good. But in times where I track, and now I know what those are from tracking, I equate for that earlier. So I know that that's gonna play into my calories. I know that Greek yogurt helps to get me to my protein goal, but like chocolate chips, healthiest food in the world? Probably not. But can I have it as part of the equation and still lose body fat? Absolutely, because I've accounted for it. So again, calories, protein, the others are largely up to you. I've been following the same workout program for 5 weeks. How often should I switch it up? In terms of progressive overload, I would stay as long as you can. The biggest thing that I do and work with people is like, you want to follow that for as long as possible because it's like the slow, boring sessions. Boring, as if progress is boring. But anyways, the ones that don't change all the time, in terms of building strength and capacity or building hypertrophy, it's one of those things where the longer the better. So you're not gonna shock your system. There's no like shocking your muscles or your metabolism. That doesn't exist. That's a fancy way to get people to buy your shit. So ultimately, like, it should go for a long time. Even 5 weeks, I'd say, like, that could be the length of a cycle. But then you should keep similar movements, same patterns, things like that to continue to progress. Which honestly, in the long run, you're gonna see that most of the movements are the basics, just repeated over time. And even the most advanced people in the world do the basics. They just do them really, really well at appropriate weights, and that's it. Let's see here, a couple more. How to get back on track when working away with no gym and eating out. This would be a good time to like look at overall lifestyle. So like increase your NEAT. So get in walks, get in different things. Also use it as an opportunity to like go explore the new place that you are. Even if you're working, take your calls and put them on headphones. Get out in the morning, like walk to breakfast, walk to dinner, things like that. Also, don't underestimate just getting in like a 15-minute EMOM or a 20-minute EMOM, some kind of movement throughout, the day. Again, when you're traveling, you're probably busier than what's normal, but you can squirrel away 20, 15 minutes, something like that throughout the day just to get in movement. Is it gonna move the needle on your physical performance? Probably not. Is it gonna make you mentally feel a lot better? Hell yeah, like I would absolutely do it for that reason. Best quad exercise with dumbbells and kettlebells. Quads are the front of your thighs. I'd say heel elevated split squats or goblet squats. So once you put your heels up, that takes your hips out of it because you can keep your torso more upright and your knees can go over your toes, which as long as your heels are down, even if they're elevated on something, is completely safe. And that just helps to emphasize getting your quads to work. So I would say largely that's it. Front squats also, because in order to hold the weight in the front rack position, whether dumbbells, kettlebells, or a barbell, you have to stay upright compared to other squats or things like that where you're hinging. But ultimately, I would say the more upright your torso can be, still keeping heels down, the more quad dominant it's gonna be. Last question, can yoga count as strength training? Yoga is amazing. Yoga is just a great time to like mentally work on yourself, to spend, I'm never gonna spend 45, 60, 90 minutes stretching. Like I'd love to, but like my monkey brain isn't gonna allow for that. But if I go to a yoga class, I'm being led. There's good music. Like there's all those things going on that promotes that. That being said, I would not count yoga as strength training. Even for the most deconditioned people, I would not do that. And I would not count it as strength training. It has enormous benefits, but in terms of strength training, you want to work like specific rep ranges, you want to work on specific tempos, you want to make sure like the movement quality is done well, and it's not more of an ego thing as to like how deep or how far I can hold the pose. So I think it's phenomenal, but I wouldn't replace strength training with yoga if you're looking to get stronger, which by and large for everybody, from people, you know, that are in high school to 90-year-olds with Parkinson's disease, I would say for everybody, the stronger you are, the more you're able to overcome that life throws at you. So it's always going to be advantageous to be a little bit stronger, or at least striving towards that. And I would use yoga as moving meditation, time spent stretching, connecting with other humans before and after class. There's something powerful about being around other people, even if it's just going for a walk with someone or doing yoga together. So with that, this probably got a little lengthier than I was hoping, so you wouldn't have to sit here as long. But if you enjoyed this, please let me know. If you have any questions to add to this, follow-ups or standalones, please share. I love doing this. Thank you guys.